Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is for Mr. Harrell. I have a few questions I'll try to get through. In 2019, led by this committee, Congress passed the longest-term reauthorization of the United States Export-Import Bank. And now we have a new chair that has been very clear that she wants to advance competitiveness. She also wants to take a look at targeting and expanding and diversifying. And we've heard from our financial services planning meeting that we're going to look at diversity and inclusion. So I just wanted to enter that part in the record in my opening. But the question to you is, when we look at that reauthorization bill, which included the China Transformation Export Program, are there any ideas or things that you have that you'd want to share that XM use this authority and other trade authorities to improve Americans' competitiveness, especially in regard to what we're hearing about with China? What can we do through that authorization or through export-import to help us? Any ideas?
Thank you very much for the question. I think both the Ex-Im Bank and also the Development Finance Corporation are a very important set of tools in our toolkit to compete with China. And I think the 2019 authorization you spoke about and the ability to create the transformational export program is a key piece of making Ex-Im competitive. I know that over the last year or so that Chair Lewis has been in at Ex-Im, she has been working diligently to implement the transformational export program. I think it is important. Reality is if we're going to provide financing, for a U.S. telecom maker to compete with a Chinese telecom maker in, Argentina or somewhere like that, there has to be the kind of flexibility that is allowed under the 2019 authorization to recognize how the U.S. companies can actually put that deal together. So I think it is less, and I think it is now there, I think that what we need is less additional changes to the statute of Ex-Im. I think you did that in 2019, and more just some time for Rita Jo and all the great staff at Ex-Im to go out and source the deals, because that takes time. So I think that work is happening. It just takes some time to go find the deals.
Thank you for that. And let me also say, to enter into the record, that Rita Jo Lewis has also created a new office to have a bigger global footprint with the Office of Global Finance and Development. So I think she's done an amazing job in a short period. Mr. Harrell, let me continue. China has been taking advantage of America's lack of investments or presence everywhere from the Caribbean to Latin America to Africa to the Asian Pacific region. Short of significant dollar increases in grants to these partner neighbors, and especially if my colleagues on the other side keep their promises to decrease the budget despite the many national security challenges, what can America do to offer alternatives to Chinese investments and trade to otherwise compete with China in this global South and everywhere?
I think we have to get, in a world where we may not be spending more federal dollars going forward, to build those relationships, we're going to have to be more creative in building private sector ties, potentially around supply chain resilience and potentially around technology. I look at the announcement 2 weeks ago now between the U.S. and India, where you saw it was a government announcement, but what you're essentially seeing is a partnership between companies to work on AI, to work on space, to work on those kind of things. I think that's an interesting model. I think you could say the same, take a similar approach in Central America or in the Caribbean, where we could pull together manufacturers, for example, that are looking to diversify away from China, maybe currently making things in China, and encourage them to relocate into the Caribbean or into Latin America. So we're just going to have to leverage the private sector better for those kinds of things.
And let me end in my last few seconds. Would you agree that it would be a good idea for us to promote American entrepreneurship. And the reason I say that with CHIPS, we're saying that we need to have more small businesses, more entrepreneurs when we look at our national security. And my time is up, and I yield back.
Thank the gentlewoman from Ohio. You can answer that question in writing.